Okay, this video is in response to some students perhaps wanting to get a jump start on dealing with schematics. The reason that we do not cover schematics very early in this program is the fact that probably the prime competency that you want to get when drafting is to make sure that you draft at a scale of 1 to 1. And schematics, by definition, have no scale. So what do? You make an artificial scale of 1 to 1, so you don't have to untrain what may be for some many years of keeping to the core competency of drafting 1 to 1. For that reason, we won't be using much paper that early in the course. We'll show you a little bit how to do it so it makes you feel good perhaps, but the fact is when you are drafting on an infinite plane, better than that, an infinite space, which is in 3 dimensions, the core competency is to remember that you are drafting at 1 to 1. You may be drafting at 1 drawing unit equals 1 inch, or 1 drawing unit equals 1 foot, or 1 drawing unit equals 1 meter, or 1 drawing equals 1 millimeter, or even if you're drafting down at the nanotechnology level, 1 drawing unit equals 1 angstrom. An angstrom being 1 times 10 to the minus 10th meters, approximately the distance between the hydrogen and the oxygen molecules in a molecule of water. So you're going to make an artificial scale of 1. We're going to make sure that we are not drafting on the paper, we are drafting on the model, and in our class the model will be more or less designated by the black space. Now, there's a few key things to think about when you are drafting schematics. Schematics are done using repeating shapes, usually, and they're usually pretty standard. It's probably worth taking the time to find a set of standard shapes to use if you are going to be doing a schematic. Once you find those standard shapes, if they are good, they look like you need what you need, you want to double check that they are all at some kind of standard size. Very often you see people drafting to a grid, if you would, and we'll see what a grid looks like, of a distance of 0.1. I would argue if you stick with the general concept or precept that you're going to draft at an arbitrary scale which you get to make up, I would argue that most blocks should be made to a scale of 1 block or 1 unit. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to make, for example, show how to make a block that will fit into that general pattern. In this exercise you will learn how to make a very quick block, how to set up your grid and your snap so they are the same distance. In other words, your grid distance is 1, your snap distance is 1. And you should also learn that you should be always turning them on and off together. That is done by chording the F7 and the F9 together at the same time, and if you turn one off without the other, you will be running into territory that will be nothing but a hassle for you and for anyone who might be supporting you. You have to learn to turn that grid on and off when need be, especially if you get off the grid for some reason. One of your blocks are not the right scale or something like that. Alright, I am now going to click up here and get rid of, for the most part, most of the toolbar here, most of the ribbon. And now I'm going to click down in the model, and sometimes it won't look like that, but you want to get to the model space here, and you see unfortunately in this drawing I've already got a little box. What we're going to do here is we're going to go back to the very start of assuming that we have set up our profile correctly. I'm going to options, which you can't see. I'm going to profiles here, and you need to see here I have some different profiles. I don't have to go out and import because I'm at home, but I'm going to go to a Patak home profile, which is very similar to what we do at school, and hit set current. You see when I save my Patak home profile, I left it on a green screen, so now I'm going to go back, right click. This time I'm going to display and changing the colors of the background back to black. Now you generally will not have to do that, but you're learning here, hitting apply, you're learning that most of the commands that we're going to be using are going to be on the right click of the mouse or the shift right click of the mouse, and we will then, you see that as I brought in this profile, it brought up the ribbon once again and a few other things that I've got laid out there. We're going to remember that when we start on a drawing, we generally want to go on a template, so we're going to go to File, New, and we're going to have a forced choice. In this case, I do not have, in my home, I do not have something called schematic like you will have at school. Essentially, a schematic is a decimal drawing. It's just that you're thinking it's schematic, therefore it has no scale. This may come up every now and then. You just want to ignore through these reference files. Now I'm going back to the model. I am here. On this space you will see on the left I have the Layers Property Manager. I'm going to double click on Object. Now we're back to where we were, but at least we know we were in the right spot now. We will be dealing with layers pretty quickly, and very often on a larger screen or a dual screen, the layers toolbar, the layers box you would have up all the time. We'll leave this up for a while here, just even though we are drafting on one layer. To review what we covered in class a little bit, or what you've done throughout time with Windows, that box here, which is placed there to give you an artificial sense of scale, which you sometimes need. I've left click on it. I now can right click. I'm holding down the mouse, and it's not always working because of the timing on the mouse. I can do this, and I can just say erase, E-R-A-S-E. You can hit the delete key. I think most of you are used to that. And you now have more or less an infinitely infinite black space. So what we're going to go through here is to make a box the size of one square. Box the size of one square, so that if we make a repeating shape, it will fit into a grid that's the size of one tick between the grid. So there's all kinds of different ways to make boxes. One way would be to make a line, and right now I've got the F8, the ortho on, so I'm going to make a line of arbitrary distance, hitting the spacebar to end my command. And I could, if you remember, I could offset that line a distance of 1. And we should remember that offset is a very key phrase, so we can type O for offset. Spacebar. It's asking me a distance of 1. I click this, click it over there. Spacebar, done. I can now draw from endpoint to endpoint by drawing line, shift right click from the endpoint of that, shift right click to the endpoint of that. I now am wheeling in with my mouse, and I can do another offset. O spacebar, 1 spacebar, click on my object as it asks me, click on the side. I want to put it spacebar. I'm going to finish off. I'm running out of time by doing the last command, which is F for fillet. The radius should be set to 0. If it is, you click on the two ends of the pieces you want to end and cut. Spacebar, click, click, and you have now here a box of 1 unit. Thanks for listening.